Today we look at states that, compared to most states, don't try and rip you off just to live. Basically, streets that don't invent stuff like the art tax. Yes, look it up, it's real. They have it here in Portland, Oregon. Sure, it's only $35 a year, but you're paying for art programs and nonprofits that are focused on art. They say the people wanted this tax, but I think if the people really wanted it, they would donate more money to nonprofits, right? And they wouldn't need a tax, right? Anyway, we looked at all the states and ranked them by what it takes to own a home, pay taxes, the cost of living, and even how much parking and traffic tickets will run you. We're going to tell you what it takes to live comfortably in these states on average as a single person. Comfortably means your bills are paid, you can put some savings away, you might even be able to take a vacation, and you're not living under a bridge like some sort of weird live-action Billy Goat Gruff, getting angry about that clip-clopping. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Tennessee. Tennessee is the most expensive of these 10 states, and I'm surprised it's not more expensive because a lot of people have been moving there over the years. They've been popular for about 15 years right now. One gentleman thought they were more popular than they actually are. He tried to tell me that over 1 million Californians move to Tennessee every single year. And this has been going on for decades. I explained to him that that really wasn't possible, and he told me to look it up. It's true. A decade is 10 years. And using his math, that would mean Tennessee got 20 million Californians over the last 20 years. The state has barely 7 million residents, period. But Tennessee is here to win over your heart and your bank account with a ridiculously low cost of living. Taxes are practically non-existent compared to other states. It's one of the few states that has no state income tax. Rent here is so affordable that you'll start reconsidering why you're still living in an overpriced coffin-size apartment elsewhere. Now, the median and the average home prices are creeping up. They have been for a couple years. Like I said, they are popular, and that happens. One thing besides real estate that does jump them up on this list, they're kind of heavy-handed when it comes to owning a car, like traffic tickets and parking tickets in the major cities. The average tax burden in Tennessee is 6.1%, and the average home value in 2024 so far is about $297,000. They say you would need $73,047 a year as a single person to live comfortably in Tennessee. Like I say every single time, cities are obviously going to be more expensive compared to the country. Mesh them together and you have an average. Number 9, Missouri. Missouri, in my opinion, is one of the most overlooked states we have. And it's really not that bad of a state. I mean, once you get past the poverty and failing infrastructure. Last few years, they've made progress on both, so I'll give them that. The cost of living here is laughably low, taxes are pretty reasonable, and rent, that's really not that bad compared to other states. It normally sits around 17% lower than the national average. Sure, again, the median home price here has gone up a little bit, and that's because everyone's figured out that living here means you won't go broke. Basic economics. If nobody wants it, it's dirt cheap. If people start gaining interest, the price is going to go up a little bit. The average tax burden in Missouri is 7.7%. The average home value is about $247,000, and it's estimated that you need about $69,000 a year to live there as a single person. Number 8, Indiana. Welcome to Indiana, where the only thing lower than the taxes is the state's expectation of you. The cost of living is delightfully low, and if you don't mind being surrounded by cornfields, this is a paradise. Rent is affordable, usually sits around 13% lower than the national average. But who needs rent? Because I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot more people can afford a home in Indiana than many other states. But even if you don't want to buy a house and you want to rent, you might actually get your own place instead of awkwardly sharing with roommates well into your 30s. Like all states, home prices have gone up. I'm going to quit telling you that, but they have been creeping up here the last few years. I've been watching a lot of videos on why that is, and it's not just the economy. One thing that is happening is these big companies are snatching up homes for sale and turning us all into renters. Now, that's just part of the problem. There's other problems, but it's pretty alarming. Indiana is one of the states on this list that doesn't go crazy when it comes to traffic fines and speeding tickets, and they're also reasonable when it comes to utilities. They have some problems, don't get me wrong, but it's a pretty good state. The average tax burden in Indiana is 8.8%, and that's a little high, but they have a lot of other things that bring them down. Can't have everything, right? In 2024, the average home value was $242,000. That is up almost $20,000 compared to 2023. which is about $8,000 less than most other states. The average person could live comfortably in Indiana for $69,677. Number 7, Alabama. Sweet home, Alabama, where the cost of living is lower than your expectations for traffic enforcement or a high grocery bill. Taxes? Really not that much of a thing in Alabama. If you move to this state from, let's say, New York, California, New Jersey, or Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa, you're going to think someone made a mistake and you owe more. Rent in this state is also shockingly low. About 13% lower than the national average. It's so low, you might think about just renting instead of buying. Then when you realize how low the home prices are, you're all, hey, maybe I'll buy. The average tax burden in Alabama is 7.5%. The average home value in 2024, so far I should say, is about $217,000. They say you could live here comfortably as a single person on about $64,000 a year. Number 6, Kentucky. Kentucky's another state we never talk about. Now, they got really low everything. Their taxes a smidge higher than some of the other states on this one, but their cost of living's low, their real estate is low, and moonshine's like half the price compared to other hillbilly states. And that is a direct quote from a Kentucky resident. That should be no surprise. Kentucky is home of great bourbon and fried chicken, and apparently a place where you could live for a lot less. The state offers low taxes, making it easier to afford rent, and their groceries are some of the cheapest in the country. The average tax burden in Kentucky is 8.3%, and the average home value is about $207,000. That is up 2% from last year, and they're still that low. Like I said, all home prices are going up, but in Kentucky, it's hardly noticeable. You could live comfortably in Kentucky for $63,790. Number 5, Louisiana. Now we're getting really cheap. Louisiana is, it's incredibly cheap, especially if you live in the rural areas. Like there's a big dip from most rural areas in other states compared to what's going on in Louisiana. The cool thing about the Pelican State, this is a state where you can live cheap and even eat cheaper. Because let's face it, half the joy of being in this state is the food. Now, over a quarter of the state's population lives below the poverty line, and that's high. So things gotta be cheap, right? It's hard to sell things to people that don't have any money. Now, with so many festivals, Mardi Gras, and festival, you'll run into parking problems, especially around the Bourbon Street area. But in my experience, and from someone I talked to that works for the police department, their fines are pretty low. I looked it up. They're right. So they're not trying to get you there. You better pocket a little money for tire repairs because the streets in Louisiana just blow. The tax burden is a little bit higher than a lot of the other states on this list. It's 8.2%, but the home prices are ridiculously low and they're going lower. In 2024, the average home value was $198,000. Yes, you could live comfortably in Louisiana for about $63,000 a year. Again, that means you got some savings, you might be able to go on vacation, and you can afford housing without any real problems. Number 4, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is become increasingly popular over the last decade or so. So I'm not sure how much longer it's going to have low prices, because when a place gets popular, the prices go up. That's all there is to it. My aunt's doing that right now. She just sold her house in California. She moved to Oklahoma with a bunch of friends. I think that's where her family's from originally. But Oklahoma is where the winds come sweeping down the plains and blows your wallet wide open with savings. The cost of living here is so low that you'll wonder if they're trying to bribe you into staying. And in some cases they are. There's all kinds of programs to get you to move to Oklahoma, different cities like Tulsa or whatever, that if you're a tech worker, remote worker, they'll pay you to move there. Give you tax breaks. Anything they can to get you into Oklahoma. And the reason is, Oklahoma's got a lot of open land and not a lot of people. And for those Oklahomans that say, we don't want you to come here, well, your government does because they see the writing on the wall. That writing says they got a lot of things to pay for and they don't charge you a lot in taxes. So if more people move in, that's a higher tax base. Oklahoma, in my opinion, is one of those growing states. In the next handful of years, it'll be a pretty good place to live. I mean, it is to a degree already. But it's so affordable, that just means it's going to be progressing in a lot of different areas, and they'll overcome a lot of their shortcomings in the next decade or so. So if you want to get some property, you want to get some land, now's the time to do it. It's like that situation we always look back at where our grandparents bought property and how, they should have bought more, it was so cheap. Well, that's what's going on in Oklahoma right now. Land's so cheap, you should get what you can now. So your grandkids think you're a financial genius. The average tax burden in Oklahoma is 7%. Not bad. The average home value in 2024 is $205,000. That is not bad. What you need to live comfortably in Oklahoma? About $63,000. Number 3, Arkansas. I like to call it the Temu of states. Everything's cheaper and it kind of sucks. If you ever thought, I just want to live somewhere with more trees than people, then Arkansas is calling your name. The cost of living here is lower than a snake's belly. Parking fees? Not a big deal. Just find a place to park. Chances are, you're not getting a ticket for anything. Traffic fines are laughably low because honestly, where's the traffic? Housing is dirt cheap and rents are like a buffet. Plentiful and easy to swallow. Now their tax burden is a little high compared to some of the other ones on this list, but it's not, 12% like New York. The tax burden in Arkansas is 8.8%. The average home value is about $207,000. And the average person could live here comfortably on about $61,000. Number 2, West Virginia. If you like your mountains rugged and your taxes semi-low, then West Virginia is your happy place. The cost of living here is wonderfully low because there's not much to do, so you don't have a lot of things to spend your money on. Parking fees are non-existent because really there's not a big crowd anywhere to park places. I've been to Charleston. There's not a lot there. So there's no need to pay for parking. As for traffic infractions, the fine amounts are so reasonable you might think about running a red light just to test it out. The median home prices are affordable and rent is so low. I've played Monopoly and paid more for rent. There's a reason West Virginia is so affordable. There's not a lot going on there as far as jobs go. They've got a lot of poverty, and they're still trying to recover from the opioid epidemic. They have made progress on all their situations in recent years, so hopefully they can turn it around another decade or so. The tax burden in West Virginia is 8.3%. The average home value is about $145,000. You could live comfortably in West Virginia on $57,000. All right, before we get to number 1, if you haven't subscribed to this channel or left a comment or a like, please do so. It's all free, doesn't cost you a thing. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Massachusetts. Just kidding, Mississippi. Mississippi, where your dollar stretches as far as the lazy river it's named after. The cost of living here is rock bottom. You don't get much cheaper than this. The taxes, they're surprisingly high for what you're getting, but that doesn't matter because everything else is so cheap, it's incredible. They're honestly going to tax you like you're living in a really nice state. You're not. When Oregon, Massachusetts, and Washington State have lower taxes than your state, you're doing something wrong, especially when your state sort of sucks. But besides the high tax rate, and I shouldn't say it's high, it's not terribly high, for what they're getting, they're paying too much in taxes. But everything else in this state is dirt cheap. Housing, rent, groceries, utilities. The average tax burden in Mississippi is 8.8%. The average home value in 2024 is $160,000. The average person could live comfortably in Mississippi for about $56,000. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, you'll probably like one of the 2 videos being suggested right now. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.